Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have our professional of the year, Dr. Mamiko. She's joining us here. And again, congratulations on this prestigious award. It's the Professional of the Year by the All Entertainment Media Group. So we are ecstatic that you're back here joining us today. And again, it's Dr. Mamiko Odegard, hailing from beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, as a psychologist, relationship therapist, best-selling author, and of course, just an amazing woman who wears many hats, joins us again here today on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing fabulously, and even better now that I'm on the air with you and, talking with your listeners. So this is a privilege, in so many different ways. So I'm thrilled to be with you.
Wonderful. Well, I know you've emphasized in the past to our audience that we all want to be loved and cherished, and that's true. But it all begins with each of us, right? So we started talking a little bit about that last time. So do you want to kind of dive into that and tell us why it's so important to be the best version of yourself in attracting and keeping healthy love?
Oh, I'd love to tell you about that and more for sure. And, this topic of starting with yourself to create the best version, because that's how you attract healthy love, whether it's with a partner that you have now or in the future. That is determined by the quality of the relationship that you have with yourself in terms of your own acceptance, your confidence, your self-esteem. And this concept of starting with yourself first is so important that I want to devote this entire time together today to really help your listeners to know and to truly understand the impact of previous harmful experiences, as well as, present and future relationships and the impact on them. Because the quality of our experiences and growth determines the type of relationship that we become attracted to, as well as those that we then encounter. And it's not just faith that brings it together. It's an actual chemistry, if you will, as to how we get attracted. And I just want you to know, when I say you, all the listeners, to really know some of the beginning signs so that you can recognize the warning signs that maybe you just need to grow and change. So let me give you a couple of examples. Have you ever noticed that you go from choosing a partner or a mate that somehow consistently cheats on you, disappoints, hurts you, or leads you to your worst behaviors, such as being suspicious, being mistrusting, feeling insecure, making accusations, checking up on your partner as to where he or she is, looking at their phones and social media sites and all that. And then your partner, in return, is criticizing you and putting you down and, telling you that you're the crazy one, that you're insecure, that you're the one that's pushing me away by accusing that I'm cheating and I'm not doing any such thing. And so the bottom line is, if you're anxious, you're insecure, or you're self-centered or overly controlling or demanding, how is that becoming a love magnet? You may get to that first date, but you're not going to get to that all important second or third date for sure.
Oh, yeah. Sounds very familiar to me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure if you had that type of experience in the past, but you're right. Oh, there is some of that out there. Unfortunately, it exists. We have to learn how to weed through it. And with professional advice and common sense and knowledge, Dr. Muka can help us along this journey. So you mentioned like we have to be a higher, more vital, better, a confident, more self to start attracting the better quality people. Could you explain that?
Yes, nothing could be truer for sure, because you're gonna, if you get attracted to, or the other way around, someone's attracted to you, then if you don't have that self-esteem, you're going to sabotage it,
Mhm.
because you're going to think in your head and you're going to feel like, oh, I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not handsome enough, or I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, I don't have that six pack, I'm not toned, I'm boring, I don't know what to say, I'm awkward, I'm shy, my job and my career are not exciting enough, it's not prestigious
Mhm.
enough. Well, can you imagine all of this negative energy that's going on within you? I mean, that's going to rub off in the way that you approach someone one on one because they're going to hear your hesitation. They're also
Yes.
going to hear and to see your body language that you don't feel really good about yourself. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, this person has too much baggage. I don't want to deal with that.
Yep.
And the other thing, too, in terms of us being able to pick out and to initiate contact with people that we are attracted to, if you are courageous enough to do that, but your self esteem and your self love and your confidence are not intact, then you're going to blow things out of the water too, because you're going to come across as being too stilted, or you try to be overly
Mm-hmm.
animated, too cute, too witty, and it just turns the other person off so that your self esteem really trips us up. And we don't believe in ourselves, and people sense it. They can feel it, they can see it, they can hear it. And so, I want to also tell you the opposite situation
Yeah.
where we've all experienced too many social gatherings and contacts
Mm-hmm.
where we go in with an open mind and we say, I want to really get to know that person. And I'm going to find out as much as I can to see what sort of person, if that person is worthy of my friendship. And so we'll start asking questions about that person, his interests, her interests, um, what they're into, and what brought them to that group, so forth. And then they instead will either do monosyllabic answers where you can't get a sense of who they are, or
Mm-hmm.
most of the time it's the yabbering, and jabbering about themselves. They don't care. They don't ask you anything about yourself. They don't know anything. You might spend 15, 20 minutes with them, but at the end of that time, it's all about
Yeah.
them.
Uh-huh.
So that's a big turnoff, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the fact of the matter is, when you meet these people that are all self-centered and boisterous and that sort of thing, then I want you to remember that this is not about you. It's about that person, because that person has problems with their own self-esteem. If they didn't have problems with that self-esteem, then they're able to
Yep.
really be engaged. They're able to be in the present moment. They also want to be able to share not only about themselves, but to get to know them.
So
It shouldn't
true.
be
Yeah.
work for you to get to know someone. And if it is work and you're exhausted or you're bored, then this is not the person for you. So don't just walk, run away.
Got it. Thank you. Well, I love this that you are inspiring and helping so many people. And, we also want to talk more, about, another person cannot fill the void of self-love. There's a lot going on. And, you say, how does our past really affect our present, future happiness? And there's still so much to dive into. What next for us?
Okay, so let me talk about the past. And have you noticed that there's a tendency to attract the same type of persons over and over? And by that I'm talking about, unhealthy relationships. Someone who would cheat on you and be unfaithful, lies, tries to cover up, is secretive, all those sorts of things. Or someone who consistently puts you down. And so then you're in this lower position and you try even harder to please that person. And so we put that person on the pedestal and we try to be everything to that person. We lose our identity, our sense of self, and our needs and our wants go on the back burner. So that's an example of how we tend to, because of something in the past of, the partners that we've had because they've cheated on us, then we get into a fresh relationship. And what happens? We instantly think
Think that
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 the other
person's going to
person,
do the same thing.
right. And so then we make assumptions and then we begin to follow them. And then the relationship begins to spiral downwards, because of the lack of trust, the suspicions, and, it's, it doesn't have to be this way. But I'm just saying to you that if you have been abused in the past, there's a tendency for you to not feel worthy and be attracted to someone who then abuses you verbally, physically, so forth. And every chance, it's like, you can't do anything right according to this person. And your esteem and your sense of powerlessness begins to increase. And you just feel stuck and you feel sad and you go into that spiral of sadness, loneliness, and so forth. And so it's just so important that we look at ourselves and what sort of problems have we had in past relationships and how are we repeating that cycle in
Yeah.
our present.
And how do we stop that cycle, right? But you're saying another person cannot fulfill the void of self love. And this is something we kind of all go down the wrong path sometimes with, right?
Right. And I'd like to explain a little bit more about that. I
Please.
love it, Jill, that you're so astute and you bring up that fact that no one else can fill that void. So if we don't truly love ourselves, there's a couple of scenarios that could happen. One is we keep asking our partner, am I pretty enough? Am I handsome enough? Does my hair look okay? How does my outfit look? Do you love me? Do you
Yeah.
really love me? And that person just gets so tired of affirming that yes, he or she is attracted to you, and it just gets so old that the partner just becomes exhausted and just decides to leave the relationship because it's like nobody else can fill that void of love besides you.
Very true. Been there before too. I feel like we're going down a walk through memory lane. I think a whole bunch of people are probably feeling this and understanding this as well, which is amazing because this is all so relatable. Dr. Odegard here, Dr. Mamiko Omagard, actually, if you are just tuning in, just want to let you know we're excited that she's here as a professional of the year. She's a relationship therapist, psychologist, best-selling author, and so much more. And we are grateful that she's back with us here on today's podcast. And yeah, we're going down that road again, a little bit self love and breaking everything down, and excited, that we're expanding on this today. Please continue,
Right. May I just give you a quick example of how loving yourself can make such a difference?
please.
So, several years ago, there was a physician who called me and talked with me because she was so concerned about a patient of hers that she wanted me to see that person right away. And so, because there was such an urgency in her voice that there were some fears that there might be suicidal, tendencies or ideation, then I told her to send him right over to me. And let's just call him Bill. That's not his
Yeah.
real name. But anyway, Bill came over and I talked to him and I really found out as to what was going on with him. And his was just feeling so depressed and so hopeless and powerless and feeling so alone because he didn't have any friends, he didn't have any partners, and he just couldn't see his life changing. And so then, once I found out about some of the faulty beliefs that he was carrying and how he was
Mhm.
telling himself this situation was permanent. He couldn't get anybody. He's not handsome. His career is not what a partner would want, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then, I let him know that I cared about him, that, and this is where just one person in a person's life can make such a difference because I told him repeatedly that he was important and that I cared about him and that I wanted him to be happy and to know that there are
Ah,
all kinds of possibilities. And so I really affirmed in all kinds of different ways as to how valuable he was as a person. So this isn't a pep talk that I gave him. It's not that, but instead it got to the essence of, the things that he was telling himself. I really let him know how to neutralize those beliefs and change them to ones that were empowering and where he felt, grateful to be alive. And also giving him opportunities to learn like basic skills, like
yeah.
how does he talk to himself? How does he treat himself? How does he begin to initiate conversations with others? And believe it or not, I worked with him. I cleared my calendar that afternoon when I saw him, and then I said, I want you to be better. I want you. And he and I actually made like a agreement that he would not do anything to harm himself if he felt like he was going to harm
Yeah.
himself, that he was going to contact me right away and we were going to see each other. But he knew that we were going to see each other for some extended time. So I worked with him for maybe 5 or 6 hours the very next day. And so my actions proved to him that I truly cared. And that's what made the difference. The fact that I accepted him the way he was and that I truly cared. And so when after that, we would talk or see each other occasionally just to make sure that he was on track. And then I talked to him about a year later, a couple of years later, and lo and behold, not
Hmm.
only did he have a female partner, but he was happily married. And he was
Wow.
just so
Wow.
ecstatic about that because he never knew that dreams like that would come true. So can you imagine if he took his life, then he would have never realized how much he loved himself and how much someone else could love him in return. And that's why I say, you don't suffering is optional. You don't have to, just because you've had traumatic experiences, have to keep on that path. You can learn other ways to be your very best self because I want you to be really magnetic and I want you to be confident, and it's possible.
Wonderful. Well, also, Dr. Mamiko, we still have 10 minutes left in your show. I just want to make sure that we are covering everything that you'd like to share with us today. And, we don't want to discourage anyone, right? And we instead
Right.
empower them. How do you grow? How do we go about growing this self-love into the esteem and working on it? How do you work with someone to do this?
Well, the first thing that I do is I'm like a detective. Well,
Mm.
actually, I need to go back. And the reason why is because, when I had that initial consultation, and I want to remind your listeners that I'm happy to give a free consultation with anybody who contacts me directly, that, I feel like I am a messenger of love and hope. So instead of, diagnosing like what's wrong with that person, then what I do the opposite. I look at what is empty or what's the self-fulfilling path that the person is following. And also, you know, what is it that the person needs and wants? What's that person desperately seeking? And so my first job is really to give that person hope. It's not a medical diagnosis or anything like that, but instead it's about letting that person know, or persons if it's a couple, as to step by step as to how we're going to grow that person or that couple so that they know that it's really doable and it's attainable in a very short period of time, sometimes as little as a day. And so I just want them to have that hope that they don't have to live like this. And
Yeah.
it's more than just hope, it's really about strategies and tools that work. So you've got to be able to have the right system to be able to make the progress that you want to make. Because, as much as we want to have a loving partner, then what we do, unfortunately, is to attract the opposite of what we feel like
Yep.
we are. So if we're feeling insecure and we're not assertive and that sort of thing, then we really put all of our eggs in the basket of somebody who's powerful, who's assertive, maybe too
Mm-hmm.
domineering, so forth, right? And so then, it's like the perfect pieces of the puzzle, but unfortunately, it still takes you downward because you feel more and more inadequate. The other person feels dominant and continues to put you down so that your self-esteem and your self-love take a hit. And so that's why it's important to work with someone to have that guide. In fact, you've all heard of when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? Which is kind of like a Buddhist or Eastern philosophy. And that's what I want you to know is that if people are truly ready and to invest their time and their expenses, they're going to get results with me. And I'm going to give them a detailed breakdown as to step by step, because it's not just hope, it's really the results. And I want them to have results and to know that this is a systematic way of getting that for sure. So, you know, you've got to be able to know
Mm-hmm.
don't know, and
True,
we don't
right?
know very much. And that's where that guide or that teacher, that mentor comes in. And that's so important to work together to really produce that best self.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. My goodness. And in our last 5 minutes, I also just want to address to listeners out there who maybe did not, weren't here for the first show to get to know you, but your own story is truly inspiring. You immigrated here to the United States from Japan only when you were 7, right? And you have
Right.
experienced feelings of inferiority. You've gone, you didn't speak English. You've learned so much. And what I love about you is that, you've learned to accept and love yourself. And you're telling people, not just telling them, you're showing them you've been there. You can empathize with them, which is super important. So just quickly give us a little bit of your background and why you chose to go into this career of helping so many as a psychologist and relationship therapist.
Well, it's really interesting because ever since I was like in middle school and certainly in high school, people would come to me and they would tell me their deepest concerns. And I was really great
You're
at
like, ah,
keeping secrets and
yeah.
being, keeping everything private and confidential. But more than that, I would listen and I would show that I cared and that I was hearing them, that I was understanding them. And so they just felt so good after talking with me that I knew that I was headed in the right direction. And so when I was working on my undergraduate, I had to do an internship.
Mm-hmm.
And that really kind of sealed the deal that I did have the qualities to be able to help others. And so, this path of really allowing myself to be the light and to give people hope. That's why I say I think I'm a messenger of love and hope. And that's been my motto. But also, I want you to know that, when I'm doing this broadcast, this is not just a put on in terms of my smiling
No.
eyes and my lips, because this is who I am. I'm a very warm and positive person. And and interestingly enough, when I was in high school, I got the designation as Miss Smile of all things. But
Ah, I didn't know that. Look at you. And it
so,
still
you can
holds
see
true,
that I was
see?
readily accepted by my peers and, had that great relationship. And I just want people to feel how good it is when you let go of those chains that are holding you down. And so, the rest is kind of history. And when I met my husband, he and I exploded our love together even more. So, I just want you to know that I am truly sincere in terms of knowing how to help you, but I also practice what I preach because one of the things that I carry as my mantra each day
Yeah.
is I look for the miracles in each day. And sure enough, they come to me. And I want you to be able to learn some of the secrets like that as to how you can turn your life around very quickly and easily.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for your time today, Doctor. We appreciate it. Looking forward to the next time we connect.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I
Now,
want to
please
keep
tell us about
going.
that special gift.
Yes, and that special gift is just to call me at 480-391 1184. 480-391-1184, which is my office number. And just leave me your name, your phone number, and best time to connect with you. And we'll make sure that we do that. But this is
Aw.
not just for everybody. It's for the first 10 people because I want the people that are really eager and really committed and ready to put the work in because
Beautiful.
it's going to be flawless for sure.
Ah,
Yeah,
amazing.
act on love.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And always a pleasure seeing you. And a great show today. Once again, wouldn't put it past you. Don't forget. We love speaking with you. Can't wait to hear what you have in store for us next week. Thank you so much.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.